Hello, all. I just wanted to say hello from Dr. Mom. This is my series on moving forward. Who am I? Friend. The reason I'm on here is that I just finished a challenge on Facebook where I did 100 videos in 100 days, and it was very rewarding. So I found myself drawn to the whole social media thing, which is very unusual. I'm not sure why. Well, I do kind of. So I'm doing a couple series. One I'm doing is on bodybuilding. So I'm just going in a place where I want to do some bodybuilding. That's a whole other series, though. I'm also doing a series on a house remodel project I did. And now this is my first time live here on YouTube, which I usually have been doing on Facebook. So it's another adventure. It's kind of scary. It makes you feel vulnerable. And but the way I look at it is I've been growing so much. I want to keep growing. So what is it about? So uh, I just feel like I've been I've been moving forward for years and years. That's kind of my mantra. I've always been somebody who moves forward, and it's been over the last 20 years. I have always been an entrepreneur. I've always been a business person. I've flipped houses. I've always worked out at the gym. Those kinds of things. For the last 20 years, I've been working in higher education at a university. A lot of that was because, and this is my whole moving forward series, and I'm going to try and keep my kitty out of the front of the camera. She loves to get right in front of everything. So it's been a real challenge. But so the whole reason I did a moving forward type series is because I'm hoping in some way that my life, my journey, which has been many years, not that many, I went through a lot of challenges, and I've evolved in so many different ways that I believe that I could really help others, and that's why I'm here. I think that I could help others with just the experiences that I've been through, and sort of how I moved through them and how I'm continuing to evolve even today. And so, just starting kind of from the beginning, out of high school, I don't know, probably like a lot of people, I made a lot of silly choices. I didn't go to college right away. I actually just wanted to get out in the workforce and start working. So I did a lot of different jobs, always something to do with business, though. I've always been very good at business. Actually, I've been an entrepreneur since, I'm going to say, the third grade. It's as far back as I can remember. So because, I don't know, I just always wanted to earn my own money. And so in the third grade, what I did is I set up sort of this cart. I can't remember where I found it. I'm not sure where I found it, but I set up a cart and I collected knickknacks. And then on the second shelf, it had like 3 shelves. On the second shelf, I had lemonade. And so I went door to door selling knickknacks and lemonade for a while. I don't recall how much money I made, but I did make money. Then my next venture was painting sidewalks. You know how you paint the sidewalks for their address? I made pretty okay money on that. And then I went to mowing lawns. I think I did a lot of washing cars. The town I grew up in was pretty small. So I of course did some babysitting, and then later on I did do some waitressing. And then really after school, I kind of went into the workforce and to various jobs. I didn't, I did not start college. I was really super athletic. I did have a scholarship for, I think it was basketball. But I knew that I wouldn't finish. And so I didn't want to waste the money. So I just went into working. And, at that age, gosh, I think I did graduate early. I graduated in January. So I left home when I was about 17, moved several thousand miles away to a different city for an adventure. I'm an adventurer. I've always been like that. So I did different jobs here and there. But I found that I wasn't getting anywhere. And honestly, I got married in my 20s and then had kids right away. And like my life, just some of the choices I made, I just wasn't at a super good place. Like I don't know, I just always wanted to improve where I was. And I wasn't doing it just for me. I wanted to improve for my kids. I wanted my kids to have, I think we're all like that, right? I do. So I kept working at different jobs. We owned some businesses, sandblasting and painting. We rented businesses, flipped some houses back, in the 20s, things like that. But then we never seemed to make enough money, to fully support us. So I ended up going and working at a factory. And I did that I worked my way up into supervision, making Polaris sleds. And then I just got to a place where I wasn't advancing anymore there either. I kept getting passed over for promotions because I didn't have a business degree or any kind of degree at all. So that started my journey to education. And I didn't know that education was going to profoundly change me. I mean, it changed me so much. I'm so grateful for it. But at the time, I had no idea whatsoever that it would change me that much. It's changed me in so many ways. So I started out doing a 1-year business college. It was just a 1-year, I think I got a certificate. But once I got in there, my brain started just going crazy for knowledge. It just was the strangest thing, but I couldn't get enough of it at that point. And I think I was about in my early 30s during that time. And so I just became this sponge who wanted more and more information, more and more education. And I believe in the back of my mind, it was always about, I need to do this. I want my kids to get a college education instead of going to work, to become educated so that their lives will be easier. I think that's what most of us want. I felt like at that time in my life, my husband and I were just scrambling for everything we had, and it was manual labor. So the last time, I'm not going to say the last time, but when we owned a sandblasting and painting business, I got out of it because I was moving. We were doing these large tanks, sandblasting them, and I was moving a ladder, and I had paint setting, a full bucket of paint setting on the top of the ladder. I moved the ladder from one tank, you would have thought that I would have taken the paint off, but I didn't. So I moved the ladder with the paint on and on top of the ladder, and it fell down the front of me. And it was oil-based primer, because it was, these tanks were, you had to use an oil-based primer first before you painted it. So at that point, I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm done with manual labor. That's when I went to this factory and started building sleds. And I was always really good, really good at working my way up into management. I started on the assembly line. I quickly got into being what they call a lead. And then I went into the test shop first, because I've always been sort of a tomboyish person too. And I wanted to learn how the engines worked, right? So then I worked my way up into being a lead position, and then finally I went into supervision. So, but however, I had to go on a night shift to do supervising. And although I absolutely loved the busyness of the job. The biggest line I supervised was 185 employees. Sorry, 5 lead people, and then there were smaller lines, about 85. And I was fairly young, but I loved it. I loved doing that kind of work. And then I also, because I was on night shift, I became a first responder, because we didn't have any kind of medical attention on second shift. And then from there, I went into being an EMTs, because we could do that part-time while we were on shift. So I actually thought about going into that field, into possibly like life flight. But I decided that, looking back now, I decided it would take too long, and I would be on weekend type shifts and things to get into that field to really make a lot of money. So I decided to go into management and to start business college and go that direction. So I worked my way up. I finished 1 year of a business college, and then I left. We ended up moving out of, it was in Minnesota, and it was just too cold. I'm from the Southwest, and so talked everybody into moving back west. So we moved, we found another, and I wanted to do a 4-year degree, a business degree, business administration. So we moved, we searched kind of for other towns more into the west that I could go to college and get my business degree. So we ended up settling here in Idaho, where I am now. And once I got into the college, I was absolutely hooked on education. It just changed me so much. It was difficult. It was difficult because we had 3 kids, and my husband had to try and support us. I started out first working, and then I just wanted to do it full time so I could get it done. So I started out, in a business administration. I can't tell you, my brain was just going crazy as far as soaking in the education. And I would have never thought that. And so I got into it. My second year in, they told me that in order for my generals, you had to either take a language or study a culture. And so I thought, well, you know what? Japanese are great at business. So I'm like, I think learning a language would be pretty cool. So I started taking Japanese, and I got hooked on it. I mean, at this time, I'm telling you, my brain was so soaking up. I couldn't wait. So there was one of my semesters that I had 26 credits. I had a Japanese, a German class, and all my regular business classes. And I just couldn't get enough. So it was great. But however, I got so into Japanese, I thought at that point I would want to do something international. The embassy, something like that. So I went to the Career Center and I kind of talked to them about it. And, and I had 3 kids and I was married at the time. So I just said, what can I do international with the Japanese, speaking Japanese? I was already into it a couple of years. I was pretty hooked. I did 1 and 2, Japanese 1 and 2. Loved the writing, 3 vocabularies. It was fabulous, fabulous. So at the Career Center, they said, well, you're going to have to go overseas. You're going to have to study abroad, do an abroad study for 1 semester at least, so you have that education. And I'm like, ooh, I don't see how I can do that. My youngest was 12 at the time. And I said, I don't see how I can. And the lady at the Career Center is like, why not? And something flipped in my head and I'm like, yeah, why not? So I talked to my husband about it and he didn't say no. So I wrote for a Fulbright scholarship and got one for $10,000 to do an abroad study for a semester. And my husband agreed to it. So I went to Japan. So I didn't graduate in 4 years. I went to Japan for a semester. That was over the top exhilarating, but it was still hard, because my kids weren't there. So, but what I found is that in Japan, they study a little bit harder than us Americans. I had to relearn a lot of the vocabulary. So I went to 1 semester, came back, I was able to finish, and I got an international degree, international studies, international commerce minor. And then I finished my bachelor's degree as well in administration. So that was my first, but I wasn't done. I was not done. So I did some jobs, miscellaneous jobs, grant writing, things like that. But I thought, I need to get on at the college, because if I get on at the university, I can go finish, keep going, I don't know, for minimal fees, right? $5 a credit at our university to go there. So I did graduate with my business administration. So I was able to get a good job as a senior accounting. They call it an accountant. I wasn't certified, but that's what I was. So after getting there, I was trying to get promoted into something else. That was kind of I wanted to get into higher education leadership. That was my whole goal. Vice president, dean, something. And I'm not someone to stay idle very long as far as learning goes, or a growth mindset. Like I always needed to be learning something and growing. I just have always been that way. So after I finished my bachelor's, I waited a couple years. I was at the college and I was learning a lot in that role. And I just figured, I would move up as progression, as I stayed there, learned the job, and I started applying for some of the business officer jobs, and I just didn't seem to be getting anywhere. And I couldn't stay idle. I couldn't not learn. So my daughter was in college at the time, and she talked me into doing my master's with her in training and development. And we went to college together, which was very cool. Very cool indeed. I found out that she learns differently. So if anybody's taken MBTI, so all of these things I've done in self-development, right, later on. But I found out that she could pick something up from a lecture immediately, and I'm the kind of learner that has to write it down, like even in Japan, like my words, 200 words a week, we wrote them down. I wrote them down all week. I wrote them down so they were spelled right. I said them right. And we had Chinese characters as well. by the end of the week, then I knew them all, but it's the same thing. So I was like, oh my gosh, my daughter picks up this stuff and I don't, not that fast. So, but I had my ways of adding to the experience. So we finished our master's program in 2 years and graduated together, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And so my goal of becoming a different person so that my children would follow became a reality. My son, my firstborn son, graduated in an IT capacity. Actually, he went into, I think he went into surveying. He's in IT now, but he did a degree first. Then my daughter ended up going into and getting a master's degree, and then she went into her undergrad was psychology. Then she went into master's with me, and then she went on to become. I mean, my kids are so wonderful, and then my youngest actually went into the Marine Corps. Got out 2 tours in Iraq or Afghanistan, which was another story. I guess I could do a thing on a Marine mom, and my late husband was a Marine as well. And so that's a whole story. It makes you a tough woman. That's a whole story in itself. So, my youngest son as well. So he left the Marines, became a helicopter pilot, was an instructor, and now he's a life flight pilot. So I wanted to be life flight on the crew back in the day. He became a pilot, which kind of scares me a little, but he's a very, very good pilot. My daughter's with the State Department, and my other son's an IT specialist. And how can things, I feel like I want to say I contributed because of my education and the example. I want to say that, but I do give them credit. They're wonderful, wonderful kids. And now my grandkids are all planning on, so after my master's, I kept applying for other jobs within the university. I had been applying for 5 years, and I just wasn't getting anywhere. I took supervision classes. I took certified through the state for management. I can't tell you how many different professional development things I've taken, supervisor roles, all these things, right? Trying to get promoted. So I still wasn't. So then I'm like, well, I guess I have to get my doctorate. So here we go again. So I decided on taking it in higher education leadership because I still had the goal of, going up into higher education and the administrative part. So I just graduated in the middle of COVID 2020, in the middle of the shutdown pandemic piece in May. We didn't get a walk. I had to really push to get my dissertation done because now I still don't know if that many people have read it, but I did it on, we had a new president at the university. I studied the change process and leaders within the university after the president took office, basically, our president, university president. But in the midst of all that, I was about 4 years in. It took me about 6 total years, and I was still hooked. I can't tell you how hooked on education and learning. This is a span of 20 years. And 4 years through my program, my husband ended up passing away. And it was a very, very, very stressful situation. Very stressful. I can't even, it's so hard. It's been almost 5 years now. I was in the middle of my program when he passed away. And I think it was a blessing. Honestly, it was a blessing because it kept me busy. I'm very goal oriented, and my work also kept me sane. I had this routine that I could follow. I'm pretty responsible, and so I had to get up every day and move forward, whether I liked it or not. I didn't want to do it most days. I wanted to just not do anything, you know? So that's kind of where I'm at. So I've been moving forward in my degrees for years and years. And guess what? I still haven't got promoted. I don't know. So I graduated in May. I'm still working at the university, but I'm at a place where I can't stay there anymore. I'm just in this place where, okay, now I've got my doctorate and I'm not growing anymore. And so that's how I found where I'm at now. Because I did a 21-day challenge, Unstoppable Influencers Challenge, where you have to do 100 videos in 100 days. Oh, I'm sorry, my nose. I found out since I've been doing videos that I'm allergic to my cat. Wow. But if I keep her outside the door, she's very annoying. And my dog may be snoring in the background. At least she's not walking. So I managed to get all the way through the dissertation in May of 2020 and graduated. Although we didn't walk, it's okay. You know, I finished. I'm a doctor. It's still taking a while to sink in. Like, I really feel like people will say, like, oh, you're the smartest, but I don't feel that way. I don't. I feel like I'm very disciplined and goal oriented and determined. So I don't know. I don't feel like it's that difficult. You just have to know, you have to be driven and know what you want. And I wanted to change my life. I wanted to change my kids' life. I want to help others change their life. So I've been through a lot. My husband and I were married 30 years. We went through a lot of things, you know, from being on housing assistance back in the day to having some domestic violence disputes to having vehicles that didn't run to, I mean, it's been a journey, but I want to say that education has helped me so immensely. But now I find myself in another place. And, you know, after my husband passed away, I started a new journey anyway. The journey of, the grief process. Grief is difficult. It's difficult in a lot of ways, but I found that it was difficult for me in the way that, and I did a video I posted on here about grief and sort of what advice I would give people. But what I found after I was going through it is I had this incredible addiction to having someone in my life all the time. And it's been since, I see that it was there way back. I was never without a boyfriend. I was never without a husband. But after my husband passed away, I realized it's this huge, incredible thing that happens inside of you where you want to meet somebody right away because it's this big gaping hole and you just want to fill it. And that's not the right thing to do. I'm so glad that I didn't, because it's been, like I said, about 5.5 years, and I'm just now doing really well. I'm doing really well. I'm doing okay. I'm doing wonderful on my own. Look at all my fun projects. I'm doing a remodel. I've got to learn Spanish. I want to do some dancing lessons, which I have already. I'm doing a bodybuilding competition in the summer. I'm working towards that. I work out every day. I'm really disciplined. I'm doing well, really well weight wise. I had gained quite a bit of weight before my husband passed away because it was really, really stressful. It was it was a hard time. So I've evolved and grown to this point. And now here I am again. So I'm not getting promoted. I can't stay in the same job. I'm not growing anymore. And so when I took this challenge, I started with 100 videos in 100 days. And I didn't know that it would change me profoundly. I didn't. It was kind of scary at first. I've always been someone who's been in leadership roles. I've always been someone at the one college I gave the graduation speech. Those kinds of things never really scared me, and they actually, I really always liked them. But I never really got into public speaking per se until I started doing these live videos. And I started on Facebook, and it was so awesome. I don't even know why it was so awesome, but I ended up having a lot of my friends that were on there already would come on, and we would chat about things. I kind of had a list of things to talk about. What would you tell your childhood self? What would you tell your teenage self? What would you tell your future self? Video remove. There was a whole list of what I could talk about. Later on, it ended up turning into it evolved into this really cool moving forward piece that I just started thinking about. Well, so I'm if I put a challenge 21, I could do this. I've taught online, I've taught, and it's my master's program. I could put together a 21-day program, and I think it would be really good. So I got the name Dr. Mom from my son-in-law when I graduated. He just sent me a congratulation. He said, Dr. Mom. And so I'm like, I love that. So that's where that came from. And I just thought, it's kind of a catchy way to put it up here. I'm learning a ton. It's, there's a lot to it. Instagram, and I always say it wrong. Is it Twitter? LinkedIn and Facebook, and doing your videos this way and that, and how all these things, and then putting together a challenge. So I did create a professional page on Facebook, and so but I ended up giving my notice at work. So I just, I've been watching all these evolving videos, and I'm hooked on the YouTube, on all the great people on there, and I found my people. That's what I feel like. I'm like, oh my gosh, the things that they're talking about on here, Lisa Nichols, Lewis Howes, oh my gosh, Dr. Huberman, oh my gosh, he's just all the workings of the brain, and it's so exciting. And so I'm like, this is me. I've found my place. And so I am working on putting a challenge together. I've got a professional page on Facebook, but I do have a web page, but I need to get it all set up. So I just kept hearing this calling my name, and knowing it was the right direction, and divinely inspired by it. The challenge I was on as well, and just things like you just have to take a jump and leap of faith and do it. And I've always been about that. I'm an entrepreneur. I've always. And one thing that Nastasia Haslett says on her challenge is, look, you have to eventually just burn that bridge. Burn the bridge, because when men were in war back, I don't know, any war probably, they said they had to burn the bridge behind them so that they would fight harder going forward. And that made sense to me. I'm like, okay, I can't do this work anymore. I'm making everybody miserable at work. I've got to get into something that's making me grow again. So I put my notice in. I've got about another 15 days, and that's when I'm going to start working real hard on my 21-day challenge and posting on here. So I started with just bringing some of my videos over, my 100 videos over I did on there. And it was scary on Facebook at first, but then it got way easier. And it was scary on here at first, but it's just going to get easier. I'm just going to get better at it. And I'm not the best. I still say and do things like I say so a lot, and but it's real and it's raw, and you just got to go for it. So that's what I'm doing. So it's called Moving Forward with Dr. Mom. I'm hoping I can help others. If they're stuck somewhere, if they're at a place, I don't know, it could be anywhere from bodybuilding, losing weight, to remodeling their kitchen. That's what I'm in the middle of doing now. And so it could be a lot of things. I'm at a great place. I've taught before, and so I'm just gonna do the challenge, and it's very enjoyable. I'm finding my voice, but it does take time to develop a lot, especially if I haven't necessarily been, I've always been great at technology, right? I've always been somebody, even in the job I'm in now, I'm a senior accountant. I did get promoted in the job I'm in. And thinking on it, those doors were closed for a reason. I wasn't supposed to go anywhere. I was supposed to finish my doctorate and then move in. I guess, I don't know. It's so strange to me, but I'm finding myself, and it's so awesome. So I'm just going to keep posting videos. I told myself I'm going to do 3 a week on YouTube. I'm trying to get more into Instagram. I don't totally understand it yet. But I have been tweeting when I post my videos on here, and I've learned how to kind of do pictures and things like that. Your thumbnail, I think they call it. And so I'm going to do a series on Moving Forward with Dr. Mom, bodybuilding series with Dr. Mom. I did post before pictures where it was so freaking scary to do that, and makes you very vulnerable. And it still does, but I feel like, you know what, if I can do it, maybe someone else will. Maybe I can help in some way. And so I'm sharing all of my bodybuilding. I've got a trainer, just my eating plan and how I'm working out. And because I'm in my 50s, I don't want to say how old, I don't. Anyway, maybe it can help other people. I feel like we're so disconnected today, and we all need to talk to each other. And then also my house remodel. I can't afford to have other people come in and do the work. So I've learned how to do plank flooring. Now I'm learning how to put in cupboards. My son is helping me with that, because you can't really lift them, but I find it pretty cool. It is very cool. I like doing those kinds of things, but when it comes to sawing and things like that, it kind of, I don't really understand it. and garage door openers and things like that. So that's probably on my grief series. I should do that on, and how, it's hard when you're doing certain things a certain way, and then all of a sudden you're just not. You're starting your whole life. And I've heard divorce is the same kind of way. But you know what? I just want everybody to know that if you'll just learn to grow within yourself, learn to find ways to make yourself stronger, whatever that may be, so that you don't need anyone, that you're happy every day you get up, you're happy yourself, and you don't need to have someone. I mean, not to say that I wouldn't like to meet someone, but if I ever did, I would want them to be as independent as I am, because I'm just independent, and I love it. I love it. So I'm hoping, I'm going to post this every Tuesday moving forward, Dr. Mom. Wednesday, I think I will do probably the bodybuilding, and then Thursday, maybe my house remodel. Although I say that, and then sometimes in the morning after I work out, I just can't help it. Like, I have to get on and report my workouts and things like that. But I'm hoping I can contain myself, because I did just weigh in and get my body measurements, and my trainer's going to be changing my program again, and I'll share that. So it's pretty exciting. That's what I'm doing. I hope someone finds this helpful. I hope that you'll like me and subscribe. I hope to get, I don't even know if this is considered a blog. I would love questions. I would like interaction. That's what I love so much about Facebook, is I would have a lot of my friends would come on every day, and they're not, there were people I knew in high school, but not very well. And we evolved together. We had such a dynamic relationship, and I'm hoping they come on over. So I did see some subscribed. And so what I really would love to do is so I'm hoping to get enough likes and subscriptions so that Lewis Howes says, wow, you got a million likes, I want to interview you. That's my goal. One of my goals. So please like and subscribe. And I'm just going to keep getting better and better. Ask questions. If you have any questions for me, I would love to answer them. I would love to help in any way I can. So I think that's all I have for today. I'm surprised I talked this long, although in the Facebook I was usually on over an hour, because I usually studied a message or something. So today, though, I just wanted to kind of do an intro. And so, but I will talk about my 3 principles moving forward. So this is how I move forward. Principle number 1 is I believe you have to have a very solid foundation. The reason I think that way is because there was a time in my life that I did not. So when I say that, it's easy for me to say kind of how a baby tree, is just kind of on the surface. You plant it, but the roots haven't grown very much, and you have to water it and feed it constantly, right? And then slowly over time, the roots grow deeper and deeper and get solid. And then the tree on top starts growing, and then you start getting blooms, the leaves start growing. Over time, as long as you nurture it, it grows to be a very solid, very strong roots, solid system. And so if something came along, like a really bad storm or, hailstorm or any winds, high winds, things like that, it would be strong enough to withstand it. And so that's my first one is foundation. My second one is goal setting. It's probably pretty common. I've always set goals. I always have since I've been pretty young. I usually don't write them down, but I would recommend it. I've gotten better at doing that. I would set, a month, 6 month, a year, 5 year, 10 year goals. I always had them in my head. Like I always knew where I was going. And I always got there. But like what just happened at the university, I finished my goal and I didn't get to where I thought I was going. But I feel like I'm at a better place. A better place for me to grow more again, keep evolving and moving forward. And I'm just becoming alive from it. So goal setting is number 2 principle. Number 3 principle is professional development. And those are mine because I feel like in order to move forward, you need all 3 of those. And in my next one, I'll just kind of start on sort of on foundations and what mine is. I'm actually a Christian. I know everyone isn't, but especially over the last 5 years, it's the only way I got up a lot of days. Honestly, my foundation, I needed it. So, but everybody, whatever foundation, whatever beliefs you have, it's good. I mean, I think it's good, whatever foundation you want to, as long as you're grounded. So that's pretty much how I'm going to start moving forward. Next week, I'll have on Monday, I'll just do one on foundations and then keep going from there. So you're going to see me every week, 3 times a week. That's my goal. That's my goal, and I'm sticking to it. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, spread the word. Dr. Mom Live. Much love to all. Blessings to all. Bye.